Whoever, in the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Glory to thee, O Christ, our God and our hope. Glory to thee, O heavenly King, comfort of the Spirit of truth, who art in all places and fills all things, treasure of good things and giver of life. Come and dwell in us, cleanse us from every stain, and save our souls, O good one.
Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our weekly Bible study. This one today is a bit special, different. We're not continuing with the New Testament. We kind of taking a break to do like a small introduction, a short introduction on the book of the Psalms, book of Psalms. And the reason why is because, as you notice, and as you read probably in the email, the ladies, the LMBS, part of their Lenten work or obedience, they wanted to do what's called, read the Psalter and do like a prayer group where they read the Psalms as a like a as a I would say regiment, but like as a work during Lent, but also do it in a like as a group all together, where they um, read on their own, but they also read together, if I can say, and pray for each other. Um, that's usually very common to do stuff like this. That you read a book, you should read, like you as a group you agree on reading a specific book and then you talk about it, but also through scriptures, because what's called in the Orthodox Church we have what's called the our daily prayers, right? Our daily our prayer rules, if I can say, or prayer rule, where you make it as a rule, like every morning or every evening I'm going to read this prayer, the prayer of getting up from bed, the morning prayer or the evening prayer, or and then with the prayer, I want to read uh, specific number of verses or chapters from the gospel, from the Bible, and it's a prayer rule. So we can include prayers, part of our duties every day. The same way we, I don't know, we wash our face, or we have to go to work, or we have to do this chore and that chore, but also to pray together, not just for myself, but also for everyone, for others. So that's a beautiful thing that the ladies wanted to do that. They chose to read the Psalter, and we'll talk about all of these things, or to read the Book of Psalms the best they can uh, during the 50 days of Lent, 40 days, and of course in the uh, 40 days and the Holy Week. So 47 days or so. Uh, but that's what we're gonna do. Any questions? Any comments? Anything to add, to be added? Everybody's just like, okay. So I did a small, like a PowerPoint, uh, PowerPoint on the introduction of the Psalms. Let me see how I can do this. Let me share first. Let me see, I can do this. Okay. Forgive me, I'm a bit congested, but so you can see it, right? Let me see. Can I do this? Okay, good. Very good. I have to like move the screen to uh, so first, like I said, it's an introduction to the Book of Psalms, an overview, talk about it in general, authors, type of literature, interpretation, understanding of the Psalms. Uh, the Book of Psalm, the Psalter, it's the most important book in the Old Testament, and arguably also it's in the whole Bible, as it's the most important book. All the church services, all those church services that we do, Vespers, Compline, Matins, and even the Divine Liturgy, are based on the Book of Psalms. In some places, it's very obvious. Like in Vespers, when we read Psalm 103, we start the Vespers. It's like right there, it says Psalm 103. In Orthros Matins, it tells you those 6 Psalms that we read in the morning. Here they are: Psalm this, Psalm this, Psalm this. And some are kind of like embedded that we don't know. I'll give you an example, like in the Divine Liturgy. You know those like verses that the person reads before they read he or she reads the epistle, like my soul shall rejoice in the Lord, something something, you know, or this is the day that the Lord hath made, let us be glad and rejoice in it. The reading is from the epistle of Saint Paul of to so and so. Those like this verse that I just said before the reading of, this is a psalm. Uh, the communion hymn that we do when preparing to take communion, that's a psalm. Uh, so it's a verse from the psalm. So all of these things. So it is the psalms are found everywhere uh, in our services. Uh, the book of Psalms, also known as the Psalter. The Psalter. Um, it just book of Psalms, literally, instead of saying book of Psalms, you can use the word Psalter. So Psalter are the Psalms in the Old Testament. It is the Old Testament book that contains hymns and poems traditionally ascribed to the holy prophet and King David. We'll see. That's traditionally ascribed, but that's not very true. That he is not the only author of the book of Psalms. A lot of people think like that. He does have major Psalms that he's written. We know that he wrote, but out of the 150 Psalms, uh, he did not write all the 150, at least. Let's say this. Uh, so the book of Psalms is known as the Psalter. That's just another name for the book of Psalms. It is the Old Testament book that contains hymns and poems traditionally ascribed to the Holy Prophet and King David. What is the word psalm mean? Definition of the word psalm. It's literally psalm. The word psalm means song, sung to harp music. See this harp? So the word psalm comes from the verb, actually the etymology of it, to pluck, to play a note on a string instrument, just like this. You can't just like hit it, or like you have to be like a like you have to know how to pluck it, or else it's not going to make the sound, right? So it's like you have to know the salt. You have to understand the salt in order for them to be effective in your life. You can't just misunderstand them. You can't just approach them whatever way. They have to be careful to make that nice sound, like when you pluck a note on a string instrument. Uh, the Hebrew name of the book of Psalms, because what we're using in what we say psalm, it's based on the Greek word, based on the Greek name. For the Hebrew name, for the Jews, they don't call it psalm. They call it, if I can pronounce it right, Tehillim, which means praises, as it contains many praises and supplications to God. Okay. Anytime you have questions, because I don't see you all, just don't have to raise your hand or anything. Just
Uh,
uh,
Father, I have a question. Why in the Orthodox we have 151 Psalms versus 150 in King James?
we'll get to that later. That's a good question. We'll talk to that later. Don't jump the gun. But
I'm not
about what we said.
okay. No,
We
no problem.
ask if anything about what we said. Yeah, we'll talk. Yes, we'll talk. How the book of Psalms is divided. The book of Psalms is divided into 20 sections. Okay, 150 uh, uh, 150 uh, Psalms. They are divided into 20 sections. Some sections, 8 verses, right? Some one psalm, some 14 psalms. Okay, so it's not like they are called, each section is called, it's a Greek word that it's called kathismata. Kathismata literally means to sit. Literally, the word means to sit. The people are expected, supposed to sit while the Psalms are read. Usually back, especially in the older days when there are no pews, they would sit on the floor. And also don't forget, back then, give you an example, the Orthodox service, the Matin service, nowadays it takes us like maybe an hour and 10 minutes to finish it. Back in the days, it was at least 3 hours. And the reason is there were many more psalms that are read during the service that we kind of like took them out. Give you an example if you're familiar with the Orthros service. Right in the beginning of Orthros service, we read like one of the first things that we chant. It's called God is the Lord, right? We call Allahu Rabbu Dhahar Lana. We sing God is the Lord, and it's verses, and the verses are from the Psalms, Akid, of course. After that, we read 6 hymns. There are 2 sets of 3 hymns. Uh, right before we start singing, Blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statutes. This is probably not everybody's familiar with this, but at least for the people who are familiar with these parts. And if you come early to Orthros, when you can, of course. Those 6 hymns that we read, this before, many years before, in between each verse, between each hymn, you're reading one kathisbata, you're reading a bunch of psalms. So you read a bunch of psalms, then you chant that hymn, one of the 6 hymns. Then you read a bunch of psalms, then you chant the second one. Bunch of psalms, then the third one. Till you finish all these 6 hymns. So they are divided into 20 sections. And the book of Psalm is called to be read in its entirety through each week. So outside Lent, during Lent, actually during Lent, you read it twice. It's read twice. But during outside of Lent, just regular week, if we're doing all these services that we're supposed to do, all 8 services that we're called to do every day, we would read the 150 Psalms. Forgive me, that should say Psalms, not Psalm. We read them all. We read them all in 1 week. Any questions on this? It just, we only offer the compline service, during Lent. If we would offer it every day, which that's what it's called for anyway, it's not just a Lent thing. It is the one we do in Lent has a few extra hymns, but we're called to read those Psalms anyway, outside of Lent anyway. So the book of Psalms, all 150, are read every week. That tells you how important it is, right? We don't read Genesis, all of it in every week, or even the Gospels. Even the Gospels, we read them like in the course of like 3 months, 4 months in the different period. So, book of Psalms, that's why we'll see, it will make sense what I'm going to say later about it. Forgive me, I think I pressed that. General information on the book of Psalms, part 1. The book of Psalms, like any other book in the Bible, were not written the same way we see them now in the Bible, like in our own versions of the Bible. What do you see now? You'll see a title, you'll see sections, you'll see the number of the chapter, you'll see the verses and all of this, right? Well, guess what? None of this was happening till much, at least for many years, till after basically till 2nd or 3rd century, if I'm not mistaken, till they started putting those breaks. So there are not any chapters and verses numbers, all capital letters, no vowels, no spacing between the words, and no chapter break. And this is definitely, at least in the Old Testament, especially when it was written, of course, originally as it's written in Hebrew, and some Aramaic. So when the Old Testament was translated to Greek, the Greek was basically called, if you're familiar with that name, Septuagint Virgin. You know why it's called the Septuagint Virgin? When we hear the word, it's the Septuagint version of the Bible. Any idea?
79 books versus 66.
No, that has nothing to do with it. No.
No, that's what I thought.
Was the 70 translators?
The 70, number 70, the number of translators who translated the Old Testament from Hebrew to Greek. And I'm going to push it a little bit more. Who is one of those 70 that we know, we hear about?
Simeon.
Nicolette, is that you?
Yes, Saint Simeon.
Simeon, yes. Simeon, the one who carried Christ on the temple, on his entrance to the temple, that he is considered one of the 70. So when the Old Testament was translated to Greek, what's called the Septuagint literally it's to say 70. 70. The scholars had to go through the books and make decisions, or had to go through the manuscripts. They were not books. The scholars had to go through the manuscripts and make decisions where to divide them. So it's like, okay, here's the book of Psalms. It's like, imagine it's just like everything is written like just all in one sentence. Imagine 150, or what we have now is 150 Psalms. 150, all one sentence. There's nothing that tells you where to break, at least when it comes to, comma, period, the section, paragraph, capital letter, lower letter, all of this. None of this. So for the book of Psalms, mostly it was obvious where the breaks of the Psalms, chapters, and verses are. But we were going to see that is in some places and in some sections that was very hard to discern where to make the cut, and that's why we have different numbering, and we'll see in a second. Okay. Part 2 of general information on the book of Psalms.
Recording in progress.
Something all of a sudden reminded us that it's recording. Although it is mainly contributed to King David as its author, and we'll come back, to what I just said about the verses and all of this in a second. Although it's mainly contributed to King David as its author, the book of Psalms has multiple authors like Moses. There are some that they contributed to Moses, to Prophet Job, and authors from the period of the Babylonian exile, in addition to King David. And probably there are even more writers. Okay? The Psalms are not organized in chronological order. We do not know why they are organized in this order, actually. We know, I mean, somebody might make up a theory, but there's no consensus. There's no like proof, 100%. Oh, that's why Psalm 1 is Psalm 1, Psalm 2 is 2 and 3. Although Psalm 70 might be written, 300 years before Psalm 2. But somehow, when it came to the people like the Hebrew, like the first existing manuscripts, and how the 70 translated to Greek and put it in that order and all of this, that's the order that at least they put the Psalms, or at least that's how, when they translated, that's how the order was. Why? We don't know. At least we're not sure. So the Psalms were written in a span of 1,000 years. So it's not just the life of, the lifespan of King David, but actually 1,000 years. That being said, as I mentioned before, sometimes it gets trickier on how to divide the Psalms, the chapters, and the verses. Because now it's like you don't have like this one author or two authors, and then somehow like somehow you the style, so it's like, oh yeah, of course he meant it here, this is another now paragraph. It's like different different authors, although that can also work, that it makes it easier, like, oh, this is way different literature than this, so definitely those cannot be together. They're not together, just the style is different, so it can go both ways. Okay. And again, like I said, if you have any questions or anything, just raise your hand, or not raise your hand, just speak. So Septuagint versus Hebrew versions. So that's why we're going to go back to what do we call it? Like the translation. It's basically to no, not this one. What I meant? This one. when the Old Testament was translated to Greek, the scholars had to go through the books and make decisions where to divide them. For the book of Psalms, mostly it was obvious where the breaks of the Psalms, chapters, and verses are. But because the Bible was first translated into the Septuagint, the Greek version, but after it was also translated to New Hebrew. So not the same Hebrew that it was basically in the Old Testament. Most of like the current, I'm not sure if the current Hebrew, but at least to another updated Hebrew version. So they had to also go through it and make those cuts, or not cuts, like breaks. Like, okay, here's where we're gonna cut this. Here's this where we're gonna separate. This is Psalm 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4. So when going through the book of Psalms in some versions of the Bible, you notice that next to the number of Psalm, there is another number between parentheses. Do you have if you, I mean, just open up the Psalms, the book of Psalms on your study Bible, and you'll see that. You'll see that there is Psalm number, and then there's one next to it in parentheses. Do you see it?
It starts at Psalm 9.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, it does. It does. And we're going to talk about this in a second too. So it does start at that, but when you're flipping through the Psalms, you're going to see those two numbers, and you're going to see it in the majority of the number, the 150. Okay, this is due to the varying ways the Psalms were divided. In the Orthodox Study Bible, the original number of the Psalm is based on the Greek Septuagint version, while the number between parentheses is based on the New Hebrew translation, which basically King James version. The King James version, the first version of the Bible in English, based the translation on based their dividing the Psalms on whom? On the Hebrew, the New Hebrew text. Okay, that's why, Deacon, it says 151 in the King James David. Okay, although that's not very accurate. There is another one extra. Actually, I take that back. There is another one. We'll talk about it in a second once I show you the numbers. Okay, so that's why we have those differences in numbers. So if somebody says, give you an example, Psalm 50 that we all kind of know, and we recite, have mercy on me, O God, according to that great mercy, and according to the multitude of that tender mercies, blot out my iniquities. ارحمني الله كعظيم رحمتك وكمثل كثرة رأفتك ومآثم يغسلني كثيرا من إثمي. This is in our Bible, in the Orthodox Study Bible, Psalm 50, because we rely on the Greek text. In the King James version is what would be the number then? It's actually 51, and we'll see. Here's how they differ from each other. So this one, it says Greek numbering, and then LXX. You know, L in the Roman numbering, it's 50, 10 and 10, so that's 70. So that's basically saying the Septuagint version. And this is the Hebrew numbering. So the first 8 Psalms, like Nancy was saying, they're the same because there's no number between parentheses. Okay? So 1 to 8, 1 to 8, they match. 9 in our book, what we use, is basically if you're looking at another book that follows the Hebrew translation, one psalm is divided into 2 psalms. Okay, so what we have in our book as 9, in the book of King James version, they have it as what? 2 psalms, 9 and 10. So guess what? From 10 to 112, you have what? So 10 becomes 11 in the new version, right? 11 becomes 12. 12 becomes 13, all of this. So from 10 to 12, the numbering is going to be 11 to 113. Okay? Then 113 in the Septuagint is also divided into what? 114 and 115. Okay? But 114 is 116, 1 to 9. And then 115 is 116, 10 to 19, the remaining of 116. Okay, and now you're basically back to the one off 116 to 145 in the in the Septuagint, in the Greek, or in our Orthodox Study Bible. It's basically equivalent to 117, 146. And then 146 is divided 147 to, you know, the first part of 147, 1 to 11, and then 147 in the Septuagint is 147, 12 to 20, and then 148 to 150, it matches up now, and they're all the same. Okay? This is not like, oh, we need to know this, or else we're gonna go to hell, God forbid, or something. Just how, just showing you the difference. That's how, you know, that was how it was done, and why the differences. Okay, so that's why we have these these verses different. Any questions, comments, complaints? Now I'll go to Deacon Nicola's
I
question.
have a question, Father.
اتفضل.
The in our services, then which Psalms?
What you see in our services, it is following the Orthodox Study Bible main number. So you're gonna see those. You're gonna see these numbers to the left. Anytime it says, like in the services, you open, I don't know, Orthros, it says Psalm 50, it is have mercy on me, O God. Which in the King James, the other version will be 51.
Okay.
So Psalm 50 in the Hebrew numbering or the King James and other English translation is not going to be have mercy on me. It's going to be the, you know, the one before.
Okay.
Okay. So what we use in the services, you'll see one psalm. You're going to see one number. There's no parentheses.
So
So-
we're consistent. Everything in our services is consistent with the Orthodox Study Bible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So what you see again on the services, following the Septuagint numbering of the Psalms. Okay, so Deacon Nicola says, well, why King James has 151, and we don't have it in the Orthodox Study Bible, because it actually they match at the end. The last three Psalms, 148, 149, and 150, they're the same. There is a Psalm that is, with some people is considered a psalm, and some other people is not. Well, it is a psalm, but like this psalm, in the Septuagint, it did not make it, but it was added here in the Hebrew, and it's like a more of a like a what's the word, apocryphic, is that the word? How do you say it? It's like a more, it's like, okay, we probably shouldn't read it, or we're not going to include it. It's like looking at it like, not like the revelation at least made it to the Bible, like it is in the Bible, although we don't read it in the services. But it was a prayer, basically a psalm, that King James and the Hebrew made it as the 151st psalm, and the Septuagint they just left it out. Okay. All right, is Deacon still with us? Did you get the answer? You're muted, but did you get the answer? So there is a psalm that, and actually the Orthodox Study Bible, I thought I had the Bible, but I think probably it's downstairs. Not a problem. Okay,
The Orthodox Study Bible does have it.
it does have it in the end. 151.
Yes.
Yes, it has 151, yeah.
Oh, but read the note. Read the comment.
This is,
Oh, one of you. No problem. One of you. Whoever wants to.
it says, this is a psalm written with David's own hand, although outside the number when he fought in single combat with Goliath.
Hey, I mean, it's
Do you want-
still officially we're 150, and this one not considered, although that's why it's 151 when you see that number 151. But officially it's 150 psalms. Good. Continue. Do you want me to repeat everything from the beginning?
No.
I'm just
Seeing if we're awake, right?
yes. The Book of Psalms is the foundation of the Jewish and Christian worship. For the Jewish faith, the Book of Psalms has always been considered the center and backbone of their worship and liturgical services. This same approach was adopted by the Christian Church from her inception. Well, of course, I mean, we just have to be very realistic about this. I mean, in the beginning, in the early church, back in the disciples and the apostles, what is most of their how did they like worshipped? Basically, almost exactly what they were doing in synagogues. And little by little, they started inserting things. And if in the synagogue, the base of all their, liturgical worship is the Book of Psalms, then guess what's going to be in the early church? What's the backbone what's the backbone and the center of our worship? Is what? The Book of Psalms. Okay? And now you wonder, it's like, why do I have this picture there? Why do I have, this? So, Book of Psalms, right? So it's like really the backbone. We say this is the backbone even of hymnography, of our liturgical life in the end. Okay? Uh, uh, it's at the end. It's even when we talk about chant and all of this, it is the backbone of this, of our chant and of course our worship. So there are these two words that you might hear or be familiar with: protopsalti and psalterion. Obviously, we're going to learn some Greek today. Protopsalti and psalterion. In the Orthodox Christian tradition, the head chanter of the choir. Do you know this location? Have you seen that place here? Do you know this corner?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Roxanne should.
Right? Probably, right? If anything. So the head chanter of the choir is called protopsalti. It literally means first chanter. So proto, first, psalti, chanter, the one who sings. Okay? He or she is the main chanter of what? Psalms. Because that's from its inception, the church, that was the backbone. Everything was, you might read other things, but with the Psalms, actually nowadays we read them, but back then they're chanted and complicated or like embellished versions, in music. So embellished musical scores, of Psalms or simple and all of this. So again, Psalms were the backbone of chant, and they're like what you chant most. And then, of course, with the time, you have other hymns that started to come, to come into the services and all of this. So even the chant stand, we call it the chant stand. Yeah, come join me at the chant stand. The chant stand is officially the Greek name for it is psalterion, which means literally the place where the Psalms are chanted. Well, basically the place of the Psalms, which means, of course, where the Psalms are chanted. Okay? All right. So now we'll go through a little bit more theological, just a little bit, not much of a interpreting and understanding the Psalms. When I say we as Orthodox Christians, usually, I mean, at least, Catholics the same, but at least us as Orthodox Christians, we as Orthodox Christians, we do firmly believe this is not like it's a dogma. Like I can dare to say it's a dogma. We don't say like, yeah, it might be, or no, it's nice to put his name there. No, it is very clear that Jesus Christ is the main, and he is the theme to all the Psalms. All of these conversations about, in the Psalms, when any talk about messianic message, it's all about Jesus. It's Jesus. Although technically we have like three, I think, Psalm 2, Psalm 22, if I'm not mistaken, and 110, I think. They're considered more like they have an official name. It's called messianic messianic psalms. But at the end of the day, look, the whole thing is about, in the end, preparing us to Christ and talking about Christ. Blessed is the man that walked walked not in the way of the evil. Who is this? Blessed is the man. Who is this man? Me? You? No. Who is it talking about?
Jesus.
Or as the Lebanese people say, Jésus. Okay, so Jesus Christ is the main theme to all the Psalms. As mentioned before, the Psalms are the backbone of our worship and liturgical life, right? Worship is the manifestation of our belief. We confess and speak out our faith in worship. What we pray is what we believe. That's why we don't talk about, like, it's in a way, you're not going to see our hymns talking about like how nice to hold Jesus' hand and walk together. That doesn't, it's a nice song, maybe around the fire, pit or something, or like a camp song or something. But our worship is like we worship, like what we do in our liturgical service is a confession of what we believe, of what we say, of what we really, our doctrines, our faith. So we believe that Christ is the, yeah, Christ is God, Christ is the Son of God, Holy Spirit, is God, all of this. So, the church believes that Jesus Christ is the main theme to all the Psalms. I'm just gonna give a couple verses to like we did talk about Messianic Psalms. And like I said, if you Google Messianic Psalms, you might get like 3-4 Psalms, like, oh yeah, those is, but at the end of the day, the whole book of Psalms is actually Messianic. Okay? Look at this verse. It's from chapter 2, verse 7. You are my son, today I have begotten you. Okay? And this is God speaking. So he's talking about his own son. And see the word begotten? He's not saying it. That's what actually in the Greek too. It's not like I created you or something. I made you. It's I begotten you. Okay? For even the man of my peace, in whom I hoped, he who ate my bread, dealt deceitfully with me. Psalm 40. So that would be in the Greek, in the Septuagint. That will be in our Orthodox Study Bible. And 41 is the Hebrew version or the King James version. By the way, when I say King James, are you all familiar with it? I did mention in the beginning, but I just want to make sure. King James version, it's in the 1500s, 15 something, was the first full translation of the Bible into English. And it's considered like, this is like the book, is just, it's like the first one, you know what I mean? It's like, it's the first translation of all the book of, all the Bible, in English, 1500 something. Look at this one. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies the footstool of your feet. Psalm 109, verse 1. The Lord said to my Lord, this is David. This is a psalm contributed to David. And he said, the Lord said to my Lord. Who is this Lord then? What do you think the first Lord is, and who's the second Lord? And I'm hearing, I just need to get a Kleenex. Forgive me because I'm just congested. Who's the first Lord?
God the Father.
Bravo, Laurence. So God the Father is saying, said to my Lord, to
The son.
David's Lord, who is who?
Jesus.
Jesus Christ. Forgive me, but I also I don't know, yesterday a little bit, and today is more just started to be to get congestion. I don't know, probably somebody. I blame somebody at church. No problem. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so this is many. The point is, many of the psalm verses, the psalms, indicate to Christ, and that's how we see it. It's a big difference, of course. The Jews don't believe in this, of course, or else they won't be Jews, right? Or they would, they would become Christians, right? But that's we see it differently. They have their own interpretation because there's something very important. Those psalms are written in the style of poetry. It's not just like a story. Some of them will tell. I mean, some of them you'll tell about things happening, like we'll give you historical facts, basically. But even when it's put in a historical fact, it's still written in a what? In a poetic thing, right? Or else it won't be able to be sung. That's something to keep in mind, right? If it's not just like, oh, it's a story, that's why we don't sing the Gospels. Because why? The Gospels are written just like facts, right? History. Jesus said this, he told him this, and then they went here, and so it's like you can't say it's not musical, it's not artistic in a way. So it is poetry. What happened when you do poetry? When you do poetry, there are references and images used to convey a lesson, like when we have like the parables in the Gospels. Okay? So there are things that we have to really be careful when to read it. And we cannot take it word by word. Okay? When we read the Psalms, we must not take them literally, but understand the social and culture circumstances, it should be cultural circumstances and their impact on the writers. Again, it's poetry, it's art. So they're writing things and be like, whoa. I'll give you an example. There's a verse in Psalm 44, verse 12, if I'm not mistaken. It says to take the heads of their children and bash them on the rocks.
Mm.
That's beautiful language. We'll get to it. You know, maybe that's something like our next time that, or when you, I don't know, any of you reach the 44 Psalms yet in the reading? It will be very interesting. So, okay, then, you know, we can also try to find another Thursday, God willing, that we can, I can maybe tackle very kind of like questionable, if I could say, Psalms, like, what does that mean? It's just like, whoa, what are you, like, Christianity? We believe in a book that says take the head of a child and like smash it. Some people, unfortunately, will take it very literally, and we see that they justify it. Absolutely, you know, it's very clear what's happening in Palestine now. It's basically the Jews things that they justify, right? Kill everybody. You know, we can do this, and you know, and all of this. The point, as Christians, we don't see it this way, and we see it really. That's why it's important to see the whole thing. When you're full of yourself, you see things only to your advantage. And when part of your faith is to be full of yourself with things that you're better than others, well, of course, you're going to interpret them like this. But as Christian, part of our faith is what? Humility, love, sacrifice. Of course, that's the right way. There's no way there's a God and all he does is like chopping off heads and stuff. But people, again, they interpret things. It's culture, it's practice, it's you know, social influence. Give you an example. In Arabic, I think I gave this example before. In Arabic, we say if something is like beautiful, we say, "Whoa!" I'm gonna say it first in the Arabic. Oh, this thing bijannid. At least Lebanese say that. Literally means this thing is crazy. Makes me crazy. Okay, that's what you know, in my culture now, in, I don't know, the last 50, 60 years or 100 years, if you're saying something is beautiful, you say, wow, this thing, it makes me crazy. Okay? Well, 500 years from now or 1,000 years from now, if we're still, you know, if there's still, you know, the second coming is not here yet, if I'm writing this and I write, I don't know, going to church makes me crazy, you know, it's like they're gonna think, oh, definitely, oh, I guess they don't like it, they hate it, or like but like you have to understand, I don't know if that's a good example, hopefully you get the point of it. Like you'll have to understand that back then, in, I don't know, from the 60s, I don't know, whatever this word is used, but like let's say from the 50s, 60s till now, that's what they say. When something's like, ooh, nice and amazing, we say, oh, bijannid, it makes me crazy. Okay, so it's important not only just to read those, you know, Psalms, just It's the same way we say we address any book in the Bible, right? Because all these books were written for us, or for who they were written for? Who were they written for? For the people around, for themselves, their own people, their culture, or whatever audience they're trying to get at that point in their life, right? So it's a very important not to go crazy and start like, well, it says this. Yeah, because that's how they believed back then. That's how they saw things, understood things differently than us. Okay. And basically that's what I had for you. Just a small like uh, uh, introduction, like I said, about the book of Psalms. Any questions, comments, complaints, things like about why this, or I noticed this, or I saw this. I need to put the light in the room. Allah ya Abdi Allah. Very good, very good. I just want to make sure that everybody fell asleep or something.
We're awake.
Good, good. Yes. Anything else?
Abuna, it's very simple, but I noticed it. There are certain moments where it'll specify to take pause. It'll say.
Beautiful, thank you. Ask those all kinds of questions. No question is like I'm not. Please ask. So what did we say? It's poetry, right? And what is it called? Like what was the harp, right? Oh,
Huh?
by the way, what do we call it in Arabic? What's the book of Psalms called in Arabic?
Mazamir.
Zamir.
Yeah.
Oh.
From what?
Mazmur.
Right? Mizmar. Recorder? What is it called? A recorder? Yeah.
Recorder. Flute. Recorder.
بزق
Flute.
بزق أبونا
Yeah.
No,
بزق
no.
لا
Mazmur bin Mizmar.
Is it called the lie?
لا لا لا.
Lie, I think that's the word. I think
it is.
the lie. So the point is, it's the die,
نعم
because this is in our
Nine.
culture. That's what we use. Back then in the Greeks, that's what the harp. Have you ever seen anything in Greek like without a harp, like all the gods and all of this? You don't see them with the with the accordion, or I mean with the what violin or it's like usually with a harp. So, but the point is, this is poetry. This is so they're always they're written to be sung. So when you see that break, that means it's now there's a musical break. So you stop chanting, and then there's some like playing music without the words, and then you'll go back and and you finish the song.
Okay. I see.
So it's like I don't know, you're singing a song in Arabic, and then the orchestra, like you stop, and then the orchestra start like playing something, and you're just listening, and then okay, now time to jump in back again to the song.
Okay. زي الموال. As we
Well, it's just like a musical intermission, or like it's just like music between the text. In Arabic, you'll see the word salah. Sin, lam, alif, and ha, salah. Which basically this is where like, oh, if you're singing the psalm, this is where you stop, the music keeps playing, and then you join in whatever. How long is it playing the music for a minute, 30 seconds, 5 hours? But the point is that's where you take the break, where you play music without chanting.
Is Sila Abuna a man agreeing with, or there is a different meaning to it?
I'm not aware.
Okay.
I'm not
The
aware.
other things that I see from the Psalms, it's pointing out to prophecies.
I mean, of
Also,
course, I mean, the whole thing.
besides,
Yeah, well, did we say it's messianic?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So they're gonna definitely, they're talking, although it's in the Old Testament, they were written before Christ, became man, came to earth and all of this. So yes, definitely, we can definitely say that they have prophetic, because if anything, they prophesize about the Messiah Jesus Christ. Beautiful. Yeah, good questions. Good questions. What else? Very good. I think more when you start reading it. By the way, it's still in the canons of the church to become, or in order to be considered for episcopacy, to be a bishop, you were expected to memorize the 150 Psalms. That's still in the canons. Do we follow them? Most likely no. I don't know. I mean, the Psalms at the end, again, this is the backbone of everything we have. Of course, I'm not disregarding any, the other hymns we have, of course not. But it's what's like the spine, like that's holding everything together. My Old Testament professor at Holy Cross at seminary, Father Eugene Petioc, very wonderful scholar. Some people might not agree with, anyway, but the point, who's done many research on, especially Semitic languages. So he speaks Hebrew. So like he's done extensive work on Old Testament. He's Romanian. He's Romanian who's been in the state for many, many, many years. Told us once, he says, you want something to really happen? Like something like you want a miracle? Read in the Romanian practice, I guess. That's according to him. The Romanian like pietistic practices, that if you want something, not like, oh God, please send me $1 billion, of course, not something like this. If you really like, if you're struggling with something or you want something like really, somebody to heal, you read the book of Psalms. You do not leave it till you read all 150. And they believe in Romania that this will happen. A miracle will occur. You just have to be sincere reading it. Reading all of it. Not just like I read one today, I'll go for a walk, I'll go take a nap, I'll eat, and then come back. It's like you make it as if like you're disciplined. That's the word I was actually looking for. Like prayer discipline. Lenten discipline. Lenten discipline is like, I want to do this. I want to read 2 Psalms every day. I want to read 5 Psalms. I want to read this. I want to read that. So Psalms are beautiful. Honestly, I try to always remind myself with verses, read as much as I can, Psalms. They're beautiful. And again, it's a lot of learning of them. We learn a lot from them. And also, yeah, I mean, but the Psalms are wonderful. You just have to, like I said, when we read them, it's like what the eunuch told Saint Philip. What did he tell him when he found him, when Saint Philip met the eunuch or the Ethiopian guy? Yeah, he was a eunuch. He tells him, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I'm reading scriptures." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "But I don't understand what I'm reading." So the point that we have to trust that we read about the church, what it says about the Psalms and how to interpret them, and we can't just like, I don't know, Angela interprets them the way she wants, and then Roxanne does her own version, and then Alexis does, and Chris does his own. That's not. I mean, some Christian groups, that's what they believe, but this is ridiculous. Well, how about if we came out with 4 different interpretations? We say, yeah, well, what's wrong with that? Well, this is very wrong. I made up my own. There's not like a reference. There is not anymore a backbone that I refer to.
Then we're gonna, if we see water, we're gonna ask to be baptized again. No, I'm just kidding. No, the eunuch asked him, he saw the water and he asked to be baptized. So I said, if we read it and we see water.
We'll baptize you. Yes, more and more.
Father, just there is a reading on the app of the Orthodox. There is a reading plans, and you can set it up. They can set it up if they want to read the Psalms in so many days, and it will tell them which ones to read and keeps track what they have read. So
Yeah, I mean, there are many ways. I mean, in the end, like I said, the Psalm is read in 1 week, basically. And the Psalms, the book of Psalms, is read once a week. I mean, the whole thing in one week span. But people do, like, I don't know, Khoury came out, I think what you guys shared, like it's one way. There are many ways you can, yeah, there are many ways how you can divide it. You want to read 2 Psalms a day, you want to read, I think the discipline is what I like, it's something good to do is at least read something, even if it's a few verses. It would be good discipline to like, okay, I'm gonna read it in a year, but like in a year, one day you might be able to read 2, another day you might read to be 5. One day, if you read 119 is like the size of like 5 Psalms. So it's like, okay, it's like I can't just say 5 Psalms, like as if I just read probably like 15 Psalms because how big it is. So there are ways, I mean, multiple ways that can help you. Of course, beautiful apps that can help you track and and follow up and all of this, which is beautiful. But there is the official. See this? I showed you in one of the slides. There's the official way of dividing it. Those 20 sections basically. So there are these like 8 sections. So they are usually read during the week. So some in Vespers, some is in Compline, some are read in Orthros, all of this. And then that's how you end up reading it basically throughout the week.
I have a question, Abuna.
Fadlan.
Abuna, can you please tell us a little bit about why the Psalms were written, like a little bit about the, like the historical circumstances, why King David wrote these Psalms and his relationship with his son, because especially at the beginning of couple Psalms, he's mentioning
Hey,
his relationship with his son and why he ran away from him. Or
so it will be too much to ask, like all through these details, but it's but definitely what I can say is again, all the books of the Bible were written for specific reasons, right? Like there was something that they had to deal with. So look at all the letters. I look all the letters of Saint Paul. They're like specifically for people in Corinth. They were living life of just a bad life. So he had to address that. In other places, they were doing very fine. He wrote them nice letters, to commend them of what they're doing, right? And all of this. So with the Psalms, because we said it's a span of
1,000 years.
1,000 years. So Moses would, we have few that they contributed to Moses. Where was Moses? The time of what? What was happening in the time of Moses? Where were the Israelis and the people?
Wilderness.
Wilderness and going. So all of these Psalms that we, reflect, contributed to him, they talk about like how we're lost and we're everywhere. So it's like it's reflecting the situation that they're in. So when they were when they were captive and they were basically taken all to Babylon, and these Psalms were written, and this is actually what this Psalm 44 is one of those where they're like, what happened to us? What did we do? So it's a reflection, of things like mistakes that they've made, like as people, uh, yeah, like as people, but also like with David, it all depended on winning a war or making grave mistakes, like personal grave mistakes, like killing
Repentance.
his killing his best commander so he can take his wife. Then of course Solomon came. The
And
dispute.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is that why he wrote the Psalm 50?
Psalm
Based
50,
on that?
exactly. That's what he Psalm 50, which considered like the most popular or like the most well known, because it's very penitential, right? And Psalm 50, in many services we say,
Mm,
and if we don't say it all, we're taking verses from it.
mm.
And he wrote it because of that. When he discovered the mistake he made, or he realized, not discovered, he realized how bad the mistake he made. But there are some, they're very like living and like great and all of this because they were winning, they were winning the wars or whatever, you know, the situation, or they were living in abundance. So I don't know all the detail. I mean, it probably would be a bit too much to gather to get this, but the point is, it was always a reflection. So some of them are penitential, like, oh, I made this, like personal ones. Some were like joyful. It's like God is reigned, you know, God reigns forever, and all of this. Like, yes, you know, and they're like, you know, winning, and they're like in good situations. And sometimes it's like when they're in captivity or they're in the wilderness, they're lost in all of this. So it's a reflection of whatever condition they're in. The writer or the people, like the community or just the writer.
Abuna's on that note, Psalm 30, I think I had to read it 3 times on Psalm 30. That wasn't, I don't know if others had that issue, but
30.
Got there yet?
30, and I guess it's read during Great Compline. It says according to the little notes, or I should say, Abuna, I'm so sorry, 31. I apologize, the parentheses, I'm following.
You trust them, either shade deliver me from righteousness, bow down your ear to me, deliver me speedily, be my yeah. I forge of this fence to save me, for you are my rock, my fortress. Therefore, for your name's sake, lead me. Yeah, what is your
For Psalm 31, I don't know. I just had to keep reading and reading and wanted to know the background on that one too.
يلا keep it شو اسمه
For the next discussion, that's what I wrote here for our group discussion.
Yeah.
yeah yeah yeah, it's good. It's good. That's what, but please, if you don't mind, I'm not, because I'm not an expert on Old Testament. I'm not a, you know, it's definitely also not the Psalms. Just if you have, just let me know beforehand. Give me 2 days, a day or two, so at least I can prepare better for you. So I don't, you know, so I can be prepared better for you, and not to like, oh, I don't know, let's look it up or something. So at least I can make my, like, I'll be prepared for you.
Thank you, Abuna. Allah يعطيك العافية.
Yeah, at the end, again, we also, you know, all of this, but also there are those like some psalms that they're just talking about. Deacon Nicola used the word prophesizing, right? But
Yeah.
they're anticipating Christ, anticipating, you know, so these things to keep in mind too.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Abuna. And so many of them, they are prophesying the coming of Christ. And still, I mean, the book of Psalms is popular among Jews. And this is like, this is an example for them that the Messiah is coming, and all the incident that happened with him, just like broken the legs and all this.
Right.
Still, they did
They
not
say,
believe.
they say it's poetry. It's poetry. They say it's poetry.
I mean,
But
what
no,
other evidence can they?
but I'm gonna tell you something. Don't we do the same? We do the same. In what way? We pick and choose sometimes like what we want to focus and believe, you know, and do in our scriptures.
Yeah.
People might go, right? People might focus on like, oh, you must help. It's like, okay, but it says somewhere else to forgive your brother, to forgive your sister. Why are you ignoring that part? You know what I mean? So they do that, and we do that, unfortunately, right? I mean, the whole book of Isaiah, sometimes they don't even consider it, because it talks about the lamb that is going to be taken to be slaughtered, you know, and all of this. What happened? Is your foot hurting? Yeah, of course. Okay, come sit with me here. Okay, come sit with me. Yeah. Okay. It's like whenever he's like, his leg hurts, whenever it's like tired. Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah. And he's like, see, close the door behind you, Habibi.
Can I join him?
Right? So yeah, it's very, I mean, there are things like, okay, well, what else do you need? What else do you need more like of a proof that that's what it talks? Or, I mean, some of also they have interpretation. Well, yes, it talks about the Messiah, but he's not here yet. That was not him. That was not Jesus Christ. We're still waiting for him.
Yeah.
You know, so you have all of this.
Father, I just wanted to share, and I can show you the book as well. For most Ethiopian Christians, we have it in small, and we read the Psalms a lot, and it's almost like the Romanian that you talked about. That if you're sick and you go to your priest, they tell you to read the Psalm.
Read the
Yeah.
Psalm.
Yeah.
The Psalms,
Repeat it.
right? You're never, I mean, never, I don't say never, but the most sold book after the Bible itself, the whole Bible, and the only book I can dare to say that you're gonna see it floating, and sold separately beside, or like other than the Bible is what?
Psalter.
Book of Psalms. Go on any bookstore or any major bookstore online. You're not gonna see, oh, here's the book of Isaiah by itself, or here's the Gospel of Mark by itself. You might find books like this with commentaries and interpretation and all of explanations and all of this on each book. But just like as itself, just the text, maybe a couple words here and there, but the point is mainly the text. You're not gonna feel like, oh yeah, I bought the book of the letter of Saint Paul to the Romans by itself. Just, just doesn't exist. Again, there might be commentaries on it or books that are not just the text itself, but a book of Psalms. Everybody fights, and if anything, till today, you'll see even beside the the King James translation or other translation in English, even till today, people still want to translate it. And there are multiple translations of the Psalms, like more than any other book in the Bible.
And Father, I don't know if you covered it, but Psalm 44 is for the Holy Theotokos. Is read for her, right? On her.
Yes, she's the queen. She's actually, and I said 44 verse 12. That forgive me, that's not 44. Psalm 44. The one dash your kids, the heads of you. It's I think one. I'm sorry, because I don't want to. I'm on record now. I don't want to mess it up. I do want to tell you exactly what psalm. It's 130. 1 second. Give me 1 second, please, and forgive me. But yes, Psalm 44. We usually say it and chant it every time there's a major feast for the Theotokos. Divine Music Project. I'll tell you exactly. Orthros. 1 second. Well, 136. Sorry. 136 by the water of Babylon. Ala and Hari Babel. This one, verse 12, is like very, but yes, Psalm. We say that we read the whole Bible in the eyes of who? Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry, Abuna, you said Psalm 134?
6.
Oh,
136.
6. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No problem. You don't need to be sorry.
Yeah, especially verse 12.
Right?
12 and 14. Oh, 14
Also 14. And
and 15.
But always the verse 12 is like, whoosh, woof, that's tough. Hold on. Did I? Yeah. Oh, what did they? Okay, let me see what the. Oh, in the Orthodox Study Bible will be 137. Check 137. Unless, but I'm looking at the old version. I don't know if then they used which then I have to read the beginning.
I mean, Abuna, you mean Psalm 36 or 37?
No. One, okay, look at, and I'm sorry, I should not say stuff unless I'm, so I'm in the Orthodox Study Bible, but it's like the old version. So look at, first try 137:6, 137:9. So Psalm 137 and verse 9.
Can't see 137, section 9.
Yes.
You don't have,
There is no 9, Father.
It's
It's
not
one
that it-
36.
137.
that-
It's
36
138,
verse
May
9.
what is it, Chris?
It's 136 verse 9.
9. Yes.
Oh, okay, so they have the different numbering from the old and new.
Blessed is who shall get the upper hand and dash your infant
Mhm.
against the rock.
Against the rock.
Yes, very tough, right? We'll talk about this.
That's 136-9.
136:9, okay. I guess in the old Orthodox Study Bible, they use the different numbering. But we do really need to understand, I mean, always keep in mind the social, cultural, and what's happening in the world. Okay? I mean, don't forget that mind, a lot of people say that, oh, there's no way the God of the Old Testament is the same one as the New Testament, because the God of the Old Testament is all about like killing and all of this and and butchering, but it's actually no, it's the same God. But the people, how they lived their life, and they were in situations that all they had to do before, like, who thinks about, I mean, any of us thinks about like, okay, I need to make sure. I mean, some people might go crazy that would say, yes, we live in a world that we have to get ready and have guns, but like, who thinks about like, okay, every morning when I get up, I need to make sure that my swords are finally, are ready, all the guns are cleaned up, and why? You just are living. I mean, unless you're in a bad neighborhoods or like bad cities or stuff, that's a different story. But the point is, normally in a normal situation in our, in our world now, it's not like you get up in the morning, okay, we need to, make sure that all my weapons are ready, because that's what they had to deal with. First, they needed, to always, to kill, to bring food, right? Or to always attacking each other. It's like, yeah, I don't know when my neighbor next door is going to probably attack me and take this, you know what I mean? Or so they lived, that's the mentality, 3,000 years, 5,000 years, 2,000 years before Christ. And you would think like, oh, it's like not much of a time. That's a long time. It's like, imagine now mentality, you know what I mean? Like comparing to 1 AD, first century. That's only 2,000 years. There's like 6,000 years before that, before Christ. So add to it, imagine like, I don't know, in the year 4,000 or in the year 3,500, and like we're trying to remember what it was, the time of Jesus. Well, 3,000 years before, it's like, woof, even worse. Right? So we have to keep that in mind. That's why they talked about stuff like this. There's anger, there's all of this, because they still, that's how they lived. That's how they lived. It's interesting. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, but that tells you like our faith, our, the whole, our faith, our practices, all of this is just like, who am I? Oh, there's a priest. I listen sometimes to his sermons from Lebanon. He was a young priest, probably my age, or maybe he has like a couple of years on me or so. His sermon this past Sunday, on the Sunday of Orthodoxy, he's like, a lot of us think that our Orthodoxy, somehow I'm Orthodox, or like I'm proud Orthodox because I did this, whatever. I like lit, hold the candle in a certain way. And I said to people that Orthodoxy is the right faith, and all like just all these like wrong reasons that we call ourselves Orthodox, but they don't see the beauty of it. Has no idea what Scriptures is, has what Scriptures is. Has no idea about like you know, the teachings and like really all this mystery behind it. It's like, you know, so it's like very unfortunate. I was like, wow, that's, yeah, definitely. Sometimes we take it for granted, or we have this very shallow, is that the word? Like very, like a, like right on the surface, like something like this is Orthodox, like, whoa, there's like this whole iceberg, like in the bottom. You only see like just 1% of it, or 0.001% of it. Where's the other, you know, it's the whole thing, there are many other things in it. What else? Actually, oh, Angela is with us. Did
And
she
we
leave?
stop recording, Father, it's 8:30.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't check with you. Are we doing adult Bible study? Okay. Just an FYI. Well, they haven't joined yet, but we can, if we have nothing, we can finish with this short prayer, and then we can open up if you have any other questions, like random questions. In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. We thank you, Lord, for all the blessing you bestow upon us. Grant us, we ask you, your wisdom, your love, so we can serve your word and serve your church, serve your people. For thou art holy now and ever, not to age of ages. Amen.
Amen.
Father, I have a question before I exit. I always want to ask you this question. I keep forgetting.